Could perceptions of autistic people's empathy be a cultural mismatch? In this video, per this commenter's request, I'm going to give an example of cultural mismatch theory with autism. I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I had to look up this double empathy theory, and what I found is that Milton's double empathy theory proposes that people who are autistic, it's not that they don't feel empathy, it's not that they don't feel emotions, it's just that they show the feeling differently than people who are not autistic. And he calls this a double empathy problem because it's a problem for both autistics and non-autistics, but in a different way. People who are non-autistic have the problem that they don't perceive empathy or feelings coming from the other person, and that frustrates them. But then people who are autistic are frustrated that they have to spend so much energy in showing an emotion they already feel in a different way to have it be appeasable and accepted by non-autistics. Empathy is the ability to understand how someone else is feeling and respond accordingly. And that's inherently, I hadn't really thought about it, but that can be a problematic definition because what is respond appropriately? That could depend on culture. Cultural mismatch theory is the idea that when an institution or organization enforces one culture's cultural norms, but they don't align with a subgroup in the population, that there's a mismatch, and that's what causes discrimination. I've given examples in other videos of how this applies to social class and race, so you can check those out. If I were to apply cultural mismatch theory in this scenario, not being a clinical psychologist, I would say this could happen if an institution enforces the idea of one type of way to perceive an emotion, and that this is a mismatch for autistic people, which has to happen all the time at work. So for example, when I was managing an openly autistic employee, he used to keep his camera off all the time because he was like, the way that my face reacts to people, I just get so much crap for it because I don't react a normal way. So if you define empathy as like maybe cocking your head and nodding and changing your voice like this, then that would be a mismatch for someone who maybe shows empathy in a different way. I don't think that employee's ability to feel empathy was influenced by if his face showed on camera or not. Because by definition, empathy is understanding somebody else's emotions and responding appropriately, but it doesn't define what appropriately is. So to him, and maybe to another autistic person, he is responding appropriately, but in the culture and the organization, which is typically people who are not autistic, like those are the norms that are reinforced, then maybe it's perceived as not appropriately. So once again, it seems like whose rules you're abiding by. I made a video a couple months ago about how it's more appropriate to stare in Germany than it is here, and that for people who feel uncomfortable with staring, it's because they've been raised in cultures where that's inappropriate. And people still commented, yeah, but that makes me uncomfortable and that's rude. It's like, yes, that is the point. You're raised in a culture that told you otherwise. There are also cultures in the world where it's inappropriate to make eye contact at all. But here in the US at work, you're expected to make eye contact frequently. Everything, and I mean everything, is made up.